right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of your boys from the Papertrails podcast. I'm your host, Shamaki, joined by my co-host, Mohammed. And today is going to be a lovely episode as it is talking about one of our favorite genres and definitely a key inspiration in the storytellings that we like and the type of stuff we want to create and all those other kind of good stuff. And that is, of course, sci-fi. We did one about about fantasy and kind of the more of a historical background of fantasy and kind of where it came about before good old Lord of the Rings and all that stuff we know about. But this one here was a bit more. We wanted to do the same for sci-fi, but we realized the deeper we went into it, the more content that there is of this to actually do it in and to give it justice that it deserves. So the justice that we are given is on the series of probably my top 3 things ever made, and that is Star Wars.
Top 3 things ever made? What?
Sure.
Including burgers, pizza, chocolate spread.
Ever
lasagna.
made, man. Including a bed.
Yeah, damn.
You know what I mean? Including chairs and
So
all
if
that.
you'd go without a bed
Yeah.
if you didn't have to sleep.
Hey, but I couldn't
We
go
have
without
Star
Star Wars. Yeah, so Star Wars has obviously been, I think, one of the. It felt more like a movie for me as a kid. For me, it felt like something that happened historically almost,
Yeah.
even though it's in the future. But it felt like it occurred, or
Technically, it's not in the future.
like, is it not?
Yeah. A long, long time ago in a galaxy
Galaxy
far, far away.
Yeah, but a long, long time ago. From when?
From whenever you're watching it.
Are they in a different timeline to us?
Yeah, it doesn't
What,
matter,
what
bro.
are we? What is
They're in the
time?
past.
Damn right. Actually, to be fair, it could have been. Yeah. So that. So I always felt like there was some sort of like truth to it and something that was real and the real aspects kind of to it because of how in depth it was in the world building, in politics and all that kind of stuff. And that's not something that I looked deeply into as a kid. That kid, you just want action and all this kind of stuff. But when you're seeing all these ships and different planets and different people look weird in different planets and they have their own languages, I was like, "What? This is a whole world. Like
Yeah.
this isn't
The whole universe.
Yeah, this can't be just flipping one place, you know." So Star Wars definitely has a proper place in my heart, and with that comes so many different talking points in the sci-fi world, which they've contributed to. Stuff on, the political commentary, the chosen one, the war tactics, George Lucas's inspirations and world building, the mystiques and the force, between the Jedi and the Sith. Also xenophobia as well, as you told me before, and
Relationships.
yeah, themes of like redemption,
Fatherhood.
forgiveness. All of these topics are kind of stuff that we want to delve into today. That contributes to the world, because it's one thing to make a story, but it's another thing to make a world around it.
Yeah.
And their own political schemes and stuff like that. But before we get into that, I want to know how you felt about good old Star Wars.
Star Wars. Oh,
Eh?
boy.
What did it
I
mean
think
to
I
you?
could talk about Star Wars for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And as much of a nerd as I sound, I'll happily accept that one for Star Wars, because boy, that was, as a kid,
Yeah.
that was the one story I would say that really captured my attention in every single way that I could think of. Like,
Yeah.
it just had, as a kid, the one thing you're looking for is the aura of cool. You just want things to be like cool. Like, how cool is Star Wars? Like, if you think about the word cool, like it's got everything that you could possibly want. You got
absolutely
guys fighting with bloody laser
lightsabers.
swords.
Yeah.
Guys that are using their hands to just fly around and like throw things around and jump super high. And you got Yoda like flipping everywhere. You got aliens. You got spaceships,
man.
You got flying cars. You got speeder races.
Yeah.
You got the chosen one. The idea of the chosen one. Like, as a kid, what more do you want?
Cooking, yeah, absolutely.
You got mystical artifacts.
Yeah.
You got villains.
Yeah.
You got guys that are trying to beat the villains. You got guys that there's a hierarchy there that you feel like, oh, there's a group of guys that are good guys and some guys that are bad guys. But then you dig deeper into it, and you're like, damn,
The mystique.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows who's right and who's wrong?
Right. What's,
You know?
what's under their cloaks?
Yeah.
Some of the hoods. What they
Yeah.
got down there?
You got iconic lines like Luke, I am your father. Like, how many shows have iconic lines where or use the Force, Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm just talking about Luke, but yeah.
I think also may the force be with you and all
May
that
the
stuff.
Force be with
Yeah,
you.
I mean,
May the 4th is
May the
a day
4th,
that everybody remembers now.
yeah, absolutely.
And like just the world building, I don't think that I had ever seen any other story show so many different worlds, so many different races, and somehow still have humans as the center of attention.
Yeah. Hey, we're still in the thick of things, huh?
He's still the main man.
Causing problems, eh?
Yeah, causing problems worldwide,
Yeah.
universe-wide.
Universal.
Yeah,
In
it's crazy.
hyperspace as well and stuff like that. Hyperspeed and all that kind of stuff.
And you know what? Like one of my earliest memories, funny enough,
Yeah.
about Star Wars. Like, remember when cereal boxes had toys in them?
Yo, and you talk about the little lightsabers.
The little
and they had
lightsaber
the
toys,
different color ones.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that.
That had me. Damn,
Dude, that felt different, man.
that had me hyped. As a kid.
Yeah.
I was going into the shops, obviously. I don't condone this behavior, but I was going into them.
No way, man. You weren't taking the kids that
I was
bought
going
this.
into them cereal boxes
Damn, man.
in the shops. My mom didn't let me out the house after that one. Nah,
In every society, there's always that one guy.
I didn't go that far.
Hey, there was one time
All
I
the
didn't get
Tesco's.
one in the cereal box. So now,
Yeah, come on,
you're
man.
probably the culprit.
I gotta go get all of them.
If I looked at that box, you probably would have had your handprint full of like, I know you were having Watsits, the cheese and stuff, and like cheese powder puff everywhere.
Plus, I was getting a few bites along the way. My word, the way Frosties tasted as a kid as well. Having a bit of Frosties with that lightsaber toy. It's like, oh,
Hey, it's
we're
like
at the
best
peak.
of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay for this.
Yes. Nobody has to pay rent. Oh,
Nah,
man.
that is so animalistic, man. Hey, it's for you people that the concept of a jail came out for people like you in the past.
Australia was great.
People like, we don't want to get rid of him, but we also don't want him around society. What do we do? Put
Man,
this
I
guy
was-
in a
I was
box,
a child.
man.
I was a child.
Nah, don't matter, man.
Rabid child,
But
nevertheless.
but yeah, so let's try to get into some of the themes
Mm-hmm.
that this fantastic movie or movies. And when I say the movies, I'm mainly talking about
The original,
all the ones before the race stuff.
yeah.
You know
Before
what I mean?
Force Awakens, yeah.
I mean, it looked great, HD wise, everything. You know? Graphics and CGI.
Production
was-
quality, yeah.
Yeah, wow. But I just don't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
I don't
As
understand.
a lot of Star Wars fans think the same thing, but I would say since then there's been some good Star Wars shows as
Yeah,
well.
the other stuff that
Yeah.
have come around it. But yeah, so like one of the main things that he wanted to talk about for him was the whole galactic empire.
Mm-hmm.
And the themes of that he got was like the imperialistic kind of sense, and he got funny enough, a lot of inspiration from the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
That's why like sometimes when you look at where the rebels' bases are, it's like these weird foresty kind of looking
Yeah. Guerrilla
areas,
tactics.
yeah, where then the imperialistic forces of like America basically come down and try to,
Looking real corporate.
yeah, and trying to take over the world,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like even in storytelling, that's usually the case of like how it's almost feels the quickest way to get people into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Here's these bad guys that want to control you, and then here's these good guys that are just trying to, make
the
it out
peace.
in life, yeah.
Mm.
And it tugs at the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But then when you see all of that stuff, and then you start to see like guys like the Jedi, that's like, oh, okay, well, what is this? Wait, what's going on here? Like they're wearing these cool cloaks, and they've got, I think, the greatest invention of like warfare, the lightsaber.
Yeah.
I don't think has there ever been anything like that.
I don't think there's anything as cool as
There's
that.
always been like guns with laser bullets,
Yeah.
but I don't think the conception of a
I don't think so. I think that's probably the first of its
yeah,
kind.
and I think it's probably trademark, so nobody can even
Probably,
come. Yeah, they had to. They were like, we stumbled on gold here,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously they've got their whole order and stuff like that going on. And then they're
Man, I
fighting these mysterious shadows,
Yeah.
Sith guys, and,
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, whoa, there's
as you're talking, you're just getting my brain whirring, bro. I'm just
hey yo. Hey,
I'm thinking
what do you mean by that?
But like we're talking about weapons, like even the Death Star, for example, is a
Death
whole
Star,
planet-size thing just built to be a genocidal weapon to destroy
literally.
worlds.
Yeah.
Like, you know how insane that is?
Wild.
It's like George Lucas, he's some random white guy
Yeah.
from Middle America who just started creating this whole crazy universe with so much diversity and characters. Like it's just insane. Like when I think about it, like you think about like, all right, cool, world building. You build a world.
Yeah.
You build the landscapes, you build the buildings, you think about the people that are living in those places, and then you think about the human beings or the characters behind those places and their lives and their families and their stories and then their struggles and then the weapons that they use, and the vehicles that they use. And then you go and do that for another world.
Yeah.
You go and do that for another world.
Different places,
And then you go and do that for another world.
Yeah.
And then when they go and start intermingling, you think about how do they intermingle?
Yeah.
What kind of place do they intermingle?
Yeah.
Bloody space bar. Yeah. Cantinas, and then what kind of sleazy stuff is going on in the cantina? Like dancing and slave trade even is covered in there. That's another thing that's covered in there. And you've got all the different, like you said, factions like the Republic, the Empire, the
Separatists, all these lot,
and then you got the Jedi, the Sith. Like for me, it's just insane to actually like even think about that. I couldn't fathom like even thinking about writing 10% of that story, you know? Like I just think it's just the most insane creation of all time. Personally, in terms
for
of,
sure. Like you said, in
terms
terms
of
of the depths of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I think the good thing he kind of did as well was kind of like Stanley with the comic book series and stuff like that, where he obviously kicked it off, but then he allowed people to add stuff to it and then different
bringing
things
their own myths.
Yeah, bringing their own myths, and then if it's good enough, it becomes canon. If it's not, it just goes to the
kicks rocks, but you can still be there to read.
Yeah, exactly. And because of how diverse that world is, so many things can come from it. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got Han Solo, who I feel like is obviously they did a movie about him, Solo, but I feel like that in itself should have its own like series.
There's such depth to it.
Yeah, because he's a bounty hunter in this world. He's not even Jedi, he's nor Sith. He's just in it for himself.
Yeah.
And he collects stuff. He's a sort of anti-hero.
He doesn't know. A bit of Indiana Jones type.
Indiana Jones, exactly. And he's like closest to like how we would be in that world. Because I mean, unless you're a Jedi,
would you be a bounty hunter?
No, but you don't want to be a flipping guy in the middle of Naboo.
I want to be a civilian, bro.
Hey, as a slave, nah, man, you gotta have high ambitions, brother. You can fly spaceships.
Be a civilian, seeing a guy jumping around like.
Nah, man, I'll be on the first one on the spaceship.
You know what? I'll be starting fan clubs, bro. I'll start a Yoda podcast.
You say a podcast in there,
right? In the world.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
that's where I'm setting my
so
aspirations.
you get hit with a Death Star, now what? Eh? Where you gonna go, bro?
I'll be a refugee, brother.
Refugee, you're gone. You can't even go to another place on the same planet. The whole planet is
Who knows, man?
But even that, like the tactics and the war tactics and military, yeah. And obviously a lot of it was heavily inspired by the guerrilla style of the Vietnamese and obviously what they used in Cuba against the imperialists, which is interesting because he was showing that by doing that, it also shows who in a way is being oppressed and who really isn't. You know what I mean? Because he could have done imperialists to be because they were obviously the main figureheads and all this other kind of stuff. You could have made them out to be like the force of good.
Yeah.
You know, but then it shows, okay, this is how they're actually treating other people in the world, which is kind of like how it is in the world right now. You know, you've got always these people that pretend to be the forces of good, that have all the power and have all the might and the strength. And then someone else would be like, oh, well, that's probably just the winning side. And they're probably winning because they're legit, because how could they not?
Yeah.
You know, but then you realize what they're doing to people and how they're oppressing them. And you're like, okay, maybe these guys aren't so good. Do you know what I mean? Having that level of power, which is why people love to see small clubs, for example, even beat Real Madrid. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, fine, have that, bruv. Buying all the best players, buying all these other kind of stuff. But
like even like the idea of ethics when you're talking about the military and the different factions, there's also like cloning, the ethics of cloning, how those clones were created, and droids, AI. When you think about it, like having all these robots fighting
Yeah.
fighting a war for you because you just didn't want to pay for humans anymore, and that would be more effective. So like these kind of stuff, like just so many deep themes that it covers.
Even the
But-
stormtroopers,
Yeah.
which is like I think it's the same name given to a fraction of like the Nazis, and how one of Hitler's plans was to create the Iron Race,
Yeah.
the blonde hair, blue eyed guys, because they would be the epitome of strength and power. So then these guys get in this one guy, and they're like, you know what, you seem like you'd be the best,
You'll be the elite. Yeah, you'll be the Muslim.
best person to
Model
do it.
human.
Yeah. So therefore, we're gonna clone you, make thousands of you to basically do the job. Because I mean, why else? Who else would be able to do it better than you? Do you know what I mean? So it's like they just got 17 Ronaldos or something. And they're like, you know what? Every attack we're ever gonna make is you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, to just show that might and that power against the other people, and when you're seeing the clones being made and all this other kind of stuff in the prequels, where they're first seeing it being done, and the Jedi are like, okay, this seems a bit sus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why is there all of this kind of stuff happening?
Yeah.
And it reminded me a bit of like, you know, like when Russia were first like trying to invade Ukraine, and then they were bringing their military to the borders, and everybody was like, why are you doing that? And they're like, you know, military training. You know what I mean? We're just trying to see if this is a good place.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they just said, yeah, we're taking over right now.
Yeah. North Korea just testing missiles.
Over the whole country. That is.
Just see how far it goes.
Just
my
to see
days.
what happens. Yeah, really, you guys aren't, you know. That guy makes me laugh, man. It feels like a noisy neighbor that
Kim
you've got.
Jong-un?
Yeah, and you're just hearing like
Noisiest.
whirring and screws and hammers banging. Him shouting, Eureka, we done it! And then you knock at his door.
Just after a big bang.
You knock at his door. He's got like that black soot on his face. And he's like, oh, nothing's going on. Don't you worry. It's just...
I'm just testing.
Just sorted out, you know, the toast or something.
But yeah, talking about the Jedi as well. Like that's like it's like it explores religion as well from that perspective. They're so what do you call it? This guy's trying to break up the set. This is the second episode he's done it on. He's being the set.
Yeah, my arms got longer, man.
But they're talking about how religion and how it can almost become like a cult when people don't start thinking about things critically and think about things for themselves.
Yeah.
And how like they're like like for example, like you said, Russia and Ukraine, or when like an empire or a really dominating group of people or really dominating civilization, it starts to like once it starts to hit its later years, it starts to get too complacent. It's not thinking about the enemy anymore. The enemy almost might not even exist to them anymore. That's how the Jedi see the Sith in the beginning. So they're like, these guys are gone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're back. They're absolutely baffled. Like, what the hell? Like, we ain't trained for it.
Yeah.
Man, I ain't touched my lightsaber in a minute. And then they start thinking, damn, we got to start training up the kids. Start preparing them for war. And then all of a sudden you've got a whole generation of Jedi who are only raised in a war that have to experience a whole new life that their previous generation didn't have to. So like, there's so many like just themes that he covers. That for me is insane. But yeah, we've got to stick to a few.
No, it is, and especially if you even look at that, like the force of like the Jedi and the Sith is kind of like good and evil, and then the question as it being like where people are like, yeah, more Jedi would be better because the Sith are just pure and wholly bad.
Yeah.
But then the actual balance being the fact that there has to be one on each side, you know, which kind of asks that question of like who dictates what is good. You know, like people look at the Jedi as like, oh, these are almighty good people, you know, that just can't do a single thing wrong. But then they do, you know, they take kids and they like, yeah, you're coming with me and all this other kind of stuff. And
slavery still exists.
Yeah, and all of that kind of stuff. So they're not wholly as wholesome as people think they are. And now it's kind of a case of under whose lens does this become a good thing? You know what I mean? I guess kind of like even what you see from the West, you know, and all their propagandas and stuff like that. Like for so long, America and Hollywood and their news and Times Magazine and Washington Post and all these other kind of stuff were the main spearheads of like, if they go, this person is good, then the whole world has to be like, oh yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they say, okay, he's bad now,
Mm-hmm.
then he's not bad. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I mean, you see it, that kind of stuff of like who gives the value of what is good and what is bad, because what you think is bad might actually be good,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not the person to say it, you know? Even if you look at stuff like even between Israel and like Palestine and stuff like that, and you see the whole sort of imperialism and the rebels and all that kind of stuff, and then also the media spokesman of like, oh, who's the bad side and who's the, you know what I mean? All of that is like so entrenched in human psychology,
Yeah.
that we always think we're the better side.
Yeah, that's the mad thing, is like, because there's so many actors and people involved in Hollywood that are participating in films that are about this kind of stuff, like rebellions and imperialism and colonialism.
Yeah.
And yet they're still supporting what everybody sees as the imperialist colonialist side.
Literally.
So it's mad that these kind of mediums are exploring these themes, and in real life we're seeing this kind of thing for ourselves. But one hell of a show, one hell of a series of films. Like, who would you say are like your favorite characters, or any favorite film in particular, or a moment that you remember?
Oh, I'll say probably for me, my favorite, the one of all of them, is Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith, yeah, I feel like everyone's saying.
Yeah, definitely the fighting scene, the best moment.
Yeah,
I rewatched that. That was a work
Which
of
one?
art. The final battle between
Obi-Wan?
Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Oof.
And I feel like because it was so built up, it was also the poster for so long, and it was like, okay, these two are gonna fight. Like, the fight is about to happen. Expectations are high. How's it going to look? What's going to happen? This and that. And it still holds up. Like, if you look at it, it's a work of art. You know what I mean? And it's like the fact that they actually learned
the choreography,
the whole thing, throughout the sequence. Not like, okay, do it, stop, do it over here, stop. So you can see the intentionalities behind it, the same mood going for. Definitely the best part. Obviously, Anakin is, we'll speak about him more in the Chosen One stuff later. What really disappointed me though was Kenobi. Yeah, the series, because if you
the series,
if you think about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right, aside the fact of Anakin and his whole Chosen One arc and all of that, he's actually the best character. Obi-Wan, yeah. And he is everything essentially that Anakin is not. He is what the perfect Jedi should be. In the Clone Wars and stuff like that, you see that he had the love interest and he had somebody that he liked and all of this kind of stuff, and she dies and all of this, and then he starts to feel bad because he was like, before she did, she asked him like, would you give this life up for me?
Because they can't have relationships.
They can't have
Jedi
relationships.
Can't have relationships, like they're like priests or nuns or whatever.
And at the same time, Anakin is having a relationship, but he's hiding it from him.
But he kind of knows it well.
Yeah. And
see, there's a little relationship super vibe there as well.
Yeah, exactly. But Obi-Wan is like, I can't do it. But he tells her I would before she dies. But so he's going through that. He's got PTSD from that anyway.
That's the thing. Obi-Wan has raised Anakin because they take these, like they take these kids from younger. But obviously Anakin joined a bit later. But Obi-Wan's seen him from a child growing into a man. So he
on top of that, he sees his mentor die in front of him as well.
Yeah.
And then all of that's happening. He gets a lot broken apart from Anakin after all of that. Then he has to now get told, listen, Anakin's an op, and he's going around killing children. He's like, what? How? Yeah. And he feels like he's failed him.
Yeah.
And then as he feels like he's failed him, he thinks, you know what, let me try bring him around one more time. And then he realizes, no, he's actually gone now. He's a whole different person.
Yeah.
And now he has to do what he has to do again. The same way he had to bypass love for the Jedi, he then had to bypass his love again for Anakin by killing him, because this is what the Jedi do. They take down Sith. And then he does that, but he can't end him off. He doesn't want to do it, but he's seen him burn. He's figured he's gone anyway.
Yeah.
And then he goes off into seclusion because the Jedi is done.
Yeah.
Everything he worked hard for,
yeah.
You could have had a love life. You could have had that good life. You could have had children.
Yeah.
Everything he worked hard for, he has to basically leave and go into exclusion to look after the kids of his best friend that he killed. And he's seeing that, and he's kind of like, that somehow could have been his life. It could have been this. But he's dealing with the PTSD and regret, all of it just sinking in. And all of that is a beautiful basis to start a whole series on this guy.
Mhm.
And then when I saw Kenobi, I was like, yeah, finally they're gonna flipping go into it,
Mhm.
you know. And then half the time he's like, I cannot. No, later. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm.
He just seems like a bad geography teacher. That's what he
Yeah,
seems like.
and I'm just like, bro, what is this? What is going on? Like,
Yeah.
the only time you see like remnants of like PTSD, all these other kind of stuff, is just like him just sitting in the cave, just shaking his head, and you're like, what have you learned?
Yeah.
What do you feel? You know, you
Yeah.
just feel like we've just picked up from, you know, it just didn't feel right. But so Kenobi again, and then after that he has to basically he sacrifices himself, and he doesn't see the end fulfill itself.
Mhm.
And again, it's like for him, that's just the biggest like guy who's just sacrificed everything for
Yeah.
the greater good.
Very good.
And then he realizes the greater good wasn't what it seemed to be, because the whole prophecy was that a kid would come to bring balance,
Mhm.
and how the Jedi always saw it was by taking out the Sith.
Mhm.
But then the balance wasn't that. It was meant to be one on each side.
So whose story would you say is more tragic, Anakin or Obi-Wan? So at least Anakin got to be with his girl that he liked, and he had kids and everything.
You know what? I think Obi-Wan's.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan, it depends. If Obi-Wan at the end of the day can sit down, I mean, they all become those Force ghosts anyway.
Yeah.
So if he can at the end of the day sit down with Anakin and be like, you know, I guess you brought balance, I guess, you know, even though he's got kids and all these other stuff, and he actually had love, you know. So I don't know. I feel like Anakin's one, he got that redemption in the end.
Mhm. And he lived to see it.
Huh?
And he lived to see
And
it.
you have to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Which again was also sacrificial.
Yeah.
So
I
I
guess
guess
there's so much when you sacrifice yourself. If you get to see the sacrifice play off, it's way more worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And also he didn't. He died in his son's arms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which brought his humanity back. So
Everyone
he
can't say
became
that.
back. He became Anakin again. But Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan had a life, man.
Got it like a fish.
Huh?
Got it like a fish at the end. Huh?
Like, he disappeared. That was a bit weird. But hey,
No.
who knows with that guy? But the main themes of, like, you know, the whole Chosen One arc, you know, it comes back to, you know, the same fantasy thing that we were talking about the Arthurian legend of, you know, with the kid, the only one that can take the sword from the stone, and
Prophecy.
that's the prophecy. This is the guy, you know. And what was so funny was I never understood the prophecy stuff until way later on. I understood the tragicness of Anakin, but I never understood. In my head, I was thinking, how did he bring balance? Everyone's yapping he brought balance, and it was, funny enough, it was with my colleague in Krispy Kreme that broke it down to me. Because I was telling him about Anakin, he was like this, yeah, he was like, you know, and he brought balance. I was like, no, he didn't. You know, I was like, he did. And I was like, what do you mean? And that's when he said, and then he killed all the kids, right? All the Jedi was basically finished. Obi-Wan was, you know, moved to. And all that remained once he threw Palpatine over the edge was him, which is a Sith, and then his son, which is a Jedi. And 1-1, there was balanced. And I was like, oh. And then this new stuff, Palpatine's back.
Somehow return is the famous line. Palpatine somehow returned.
So from that drop, I mean, he's an old man as well, you know.
That kind of stuff, like, I just wonder, like, how many writers approved that? Like, how many people would say, all right, that's cool. Like,
no, I feel maybe they just decided, they said to themselves, you know what, how else can we bring him back? And they went through so
they ran out of ideas.
many different things, and they were like this, how about we just say he came back? Because that's what he did.
They just fluffed the essay.
It's like that skit. Have you seen that skit that was on SNL, which is Avatar? How the font is a papyrus.
Yeah.
Which is like some B-Tech art. You know that art attack stuff we like, the Microsoft stuff, right?
Microsoft Paint.
And so they had this skit SNL where it's like Ryan Gosling is a creative graphic designer, and he's just fuming. He's like, this multi-billion-dollar company, they just used papyrus and they just highlighted it and they just made it a bit fancy, but it's this font. How could they get away with this? You know? And he asked his friend, they're like, oh no, it's very tribal and futuristic. And he's like, it's not. You know? It's like if somebody just used Comic Sans and they flipping made it a bit fancy and they're like this, yeah, this is becomes a more. So I think after that they were like, yeah, this is it. We're just gonna put it in a line. He's come back.
Diabolical. What
Diabolical
catastrophe that
stuff
trilogy was.
for what it was. But also you mentioned xenophobia.
But yeah, I was talking about how, like, racism is actually quite a big theme, and even like the way that they look at the aliens, look at other aliens in certain ways, and different factions talking about different factions in certain ways, just based on the way they look and what makes the perfect race. And like ultimately, like the Sith, for them, they see themselves as the perfect race, and everyone else, either you got bow to them or you're getting killed, like you're getting smoked. And that's like essentially the theme of like all these different eras in mankind where like xenophobia has essentially killed off thousands and millions of people. And yeah, that's another big theme in Star Wars as well. And yeah, I think the last like major theme is like power as well. Like the idea that who has more power. Like that's where you're talking about the balance, is about the balance of power. Yeah. Who has more power, the Jedi or the Sith, and who deserves it. Yeah. And ultimately, like, the most powerful ones, they all end up falling because the power just corrupts them. And that's like the theme behind the light side and the dark side of the Force, and finding the balance in the Force. So, in terms of the following those that trilogy, I think people really underestimate the Clone Wars. Like that puts like because of the medium that it's in,
context to everything.
Because of the medium that it's in, people just disrespect it. But for me, it's like one of the best shows of all time as well. People need to watch that, and like you'll see so much more depth in Anakin's character, Obi-Wan's character. Like you just see how much like of a tragedy.
Aside from the ugly animation, it's pretty good.
And the like it further emphasizes the tragedy of Anakin and Obi-Wan. I think. Like for me, it's mainly about them. And then Ahsoka, the series, I don't think it's that good, but it's not terrible. And then for me, I really loved Andor. I don't know why people don't like Andor. Like that is like that is like a great sci-fi description of imperialism and power and how rebels fight back against it. And like it's very gritty and realistic. Like for me, that was a great show. Like Clone Wars, Rebels, Andor, I'll say everyone should watch this. But yeah,
I feel like the idea of Rebels is very interesting. You know what I mean? Especially the ones that like are up against it. You know what I mean? Up against massive foes, and because they have to kind of use their own tactics to basically, find a way around what this massive
overwhelming
power. And obviously sometimes you get help, like how they destroyed the Death Star. Was a group of them went inside, basically suicide mission. Yeah, I think it was in Rebel, innit?
Kamikaze.
That one, and then I think they all ended up dying, but they gave the code, the way to kill, how
exactly
this thing. And sometimes you got like literally everybody's sacrificing everything, and it's always in the hopes of like never really knowing if you're going to make it or not. And I feel like that's always the
overarching theme.
Yeah, and that's what really gets me. You know what I mean? It's like that's how it is in life. You make a lot of sacrifices, you make a lot of things, but then if you actually make it and those sacrifices become known, that's a whole different ball game. You know what I mean? Like even in my life, like I guess this in a way is almost a sacrifice. I was having a talk with Khalid in the previous episode about kind of how creativity can sometimes be a sacrifice, sometimes sacrifice of time, sacrifice of family, of responsibilities, of all these other kind of stuff in the pursuit of this dream that essentially you kind of have. And I feel like I've probably sacrificed, I haven't sacrificed major things.
I've seen that video of them Pakistani kids. I sacrificed myself to destroy
it's shit for Pakistan, you know what I mean? The imperialists will love them. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of like other stuff in more traditional, formal, I guess, job pursuits in not pursuing in order to pursue this, if that makes sense. And you know what I mean? It's a case of like in the end, when it all works out, and then it'll be a good story. But then sometimes there comes that fear where it might not work out.
Obi-Wan.
You end up like Obi-Wan, but then it's kind of like, will you be happy at the end of it or not? You know what I mean? Those are to be fair, the stories I like to read. Yeah. The ones where like if in the end you'll be happy with it or not, but you have to kind of go on with
the reality.
Yeah. Because obviously he would have loved to have love,
Mm-hmm.
he would love to be married and have kids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in the end, he knew he couldn't do it, you know, and he missed out on that. And I think a lot of the stuff that he would talk about is, you know, redemption.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like obviously the redemption of Vader is a massive one because he was just an op to everyone. He's, I think, still a symbol of enemies and villains. You know,
He's
whenever you
even got
think
his
of
own theme tune.
yeah, when you think of a villain, you just think of that bucket head and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, just imposing, scary character.
Yeah.
But then even for him to get redemption is like, okay, you know what I mean? Like he was considered the worst of the worst, but yet he, in the end, understood that he was on the wrong side, you know? So there's a lot, man. There's a lot of Star
What
Wars.
an absolutely incredible concept. Star
Yeah.
Wars, my word. But yeah, let's wrap it up there.
Damn right, damn right.
It's been an absolute pleasure once again. Next time we'll be talking more about the deeper, darker stories within sci-fi. And hope you guys enjoyed that episode. It's been your boy Mohammed and Shamaki on the Papertrails podcast. And we'll see you in the next one.
And let us know your favorite parts and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just feel like after this,
Brother, give me an outro, brother. Take it easy, guys. Peace out.
every time you say peace out, and then suddenly
Outro.
you're mid like this.
Thanks for listening to the Papertrails podcast. If you like this episode, please leave a review, comment, like, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on all our socials.
Keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work.